Before we get started, we just want to do a quick land acknowledgement. Our team at CanadaHelps is grateful to have the opportunity to meet and work on the many Indigenous homelands across the land we share, Canada. As settlers on these lands, it's important to acknowledge that our Vancouver offices are located on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. The Montreal offices are located on the Mohawk territory, and the land on which we operate in Toronto is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. We want to express our respect for the territories we reside in and honor the diverse Indigenous people who lived and worked on this land historically and presently. We, the staff and leadership at CanadaHelps, are committed to being active participants in reconciliation. We are committed to continuing to amplify Indigenous voices and learning how our work affects Indigenous people. If you have a question, so just to give you a heads up real quick, that our recording will be emailed to you following the webinar. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. If you do have a question or if you have any technical difficulties, just please go ahead and type them in the chat log, questions log rather, at any time. And a little bit more about CanadaHelps. So CanadaHelps is a trusted partner that helps Canadian charities raise critical funds for their causes. Unlike other platforms, CanadaHelps is uniquely a Canadian charity which understands the challenges that charities face and leverages its national support to national reach rather to help charities raise funds from new supporters. 5.1 million Canadians have used CanadaHelps over 25 years, and 3.7 billion raised. So that's 500 million alone in 2024. Right, don't let these chapters fool you. We have a jam-packed session today covering three main things. First is the impact of the Canada Post strike. Second is protecting your charity's revenue. And lastly, how to build your online fundraising structure. And with that, I'll pass the mic over to Nicole. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Nobes. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, and good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're located. Again, my name is Nicole Denisi. I'm from the team at CanadaHelps, and we really appreciate you jumping on this webinar today to talk about this important topic that's really affecting many charities. So we're going to dig into it, and we're going to move on to the next slide. And we're going to talk about the impact of the Canada Post strike to begin with. And perhaps if you're joining us today, it's likely affecting your organization, especially for a lot of food banks, for example, right now that would have been receiving mail donations or sending out email appeals ahead of Thanksgiving, or perhaps you're another organization that was planning a print, a direct mail campaign for the holiday season. So in terms of last year's Canada Post strike, one of the things we will take a moment to highlight was the impact. So last year, our team at CanadaHelps worked on an estimate to understand the impact of that strike. And using a number of data points to understand that impact, we came to a conclusion that the Canadian charitable sector likely saw a loss of approximately $266 million in donations. Forgive me, this is actually, it should say 266. And it was an estimated loss for Canadian charities across the country. We also did some polling data when it came to Canadian charities and Canadians and their giving habits. And about 43% of Canadians that we asked as part of an Ipsos poll last year stated that even though they typically would be mailing in their donations, 43% of those folks who were typically going to mail in donations were not going to do so because of the Canada Post strike. So it really left a lot of charities against scrambling, and your organization, if you've joined us on the call today, is potentially one of them. So we're going to move on to the next slide and take a moment, and forgive me if you've seen any of our other CanadaHelps presentations recently. We have been leveraging this sort of analogy to describe what charities have been facing. So in a nutshell, we see here on the slide a photo of a gymnast and a photo of a hockey goalie. And if you really think about what the difference is between these two athletes, their similarities really focus on the fact that they are top of their game, they are athletes, they train. But in terms of the differences, a gymnast has to perfect their routine over and over and over again. And with a goalie, their main job is to block the pucks that are being sent their way. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because you're wondering probably, Nicole, why are you talking about athletes when I joined a presentation about the Canada Post strike and the effect on my charity? This really shows us this analogy is also applicable to Canadian charities. So Canadian charities have been gymnasts over and over and over again as they have had to repeat the same tactics and same tried and true tactics over again. With a goalie mindset, however, charities have been sent pucks their way when it came to challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic, like economic uncertainty, political uncertainty, and now, of course, again, the Canada Post strike. So really, the takeaway from this analogy here is that we've been gymnasts over and over and over again, but now it's really time to shift our mentality and the way in which we are operating as charities across the country to a goalie mindset where you're able to be nimble, you're able to be flexible, and you're able to block those pucks before getting in the net so that you can ultimately win. So in terms of an overview of what this strike means for Canadian charities, it goes without saying, but we'll just quickly highlight it. Right now, mail donations are not reaching individual charities, and also your direct donation appeals are not reaching your donors. Delays are expected, and online giving is not negotiable at this point. It is critical that your organizations are set up for success when it comes to your online digital infrastructure. Matt's going to walk you through that in a few minutes in terms of how we can help you at Canada Helps to make sure that you're activating as quickly as possible. And then, as Nobes mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, we will take your questions. There were some questions sent in already, but make sure you're popping them into the chat so that we can collect them and have a really fulsome discussion. In terms of the next slide, when it comes to the impact of the Canada Post strike on Canadian charities, it really is bringing home the point that diversification is absolutely a non-negotiable and completely necessary. Charities have to focus on diversifying their donors. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But according to Government of Canada data, 75% of Canadians are actually already receiving mail through community mailboxes. So it has been able to have more of a slower impact when it comes to your direct mail fundraising appeals. We know, however, that direct mail fundraising for so many organizations are super important for charities and also still a way that Canadians still give, or it acts as that reminder of potentially going online and making that gift once that donation appeal is in the mail. But also donation appeals are also competing with other mailed items and potentially could get lost too. So what does this mean? We really need to protect our revenue when it comes to, again, diversification and making sure that donors are able to support us in a number of different ways. So really what we're going to focus on is we're going to focus on what we're going to do first. And then for many organizations, in speaking with them, I know a lot of charities are trying to figure out how to adapt to this situation if perhaps you only have a name and an address for your current donors, or if you only have a name or an email address or a mailing address, for example. All of your supporters from many of your organizations, there's different bits of information that you have, and we're going to have some suggestions in terms of how to communicate with them with what the information that you have. So when it comes to what to do first, really we need to focus on the channels that you can control. Right now, vital funding still needs to come through your online donation channel, so we're going to focus on that. The first thing to do, of course, is ensuring that you can accept online gifts and shift to urgent appeals now. If you don't have a ways to give page on your website, I strongly recommend that you go ahead and build that before the holiday giving season. It does not need to be difficult. It can be actually quite easy, where you're listing a number of ways that supporters can support your organization by volunteering, by making a one-time donation, by making a monthly donation, by making a gift of securities, and we'll talk about securities in a couple of slides. But we really want to make sure that you are giving your supporters essentially a menu of different ways that they are invited to the table and that they can choose to be part of your organization. But without providing that menu, they may not know what they can effectively have for dinner in that sense. So really providing that ways to give page is something that's very easy to do. And our team can certainly help in terms of sharing the different ways that you can link to Canada Helps. The other item is, and I think that this really proved to be true, is reaching donors through contact information you already have. And the one thing I'll highlight here is that the 2024 Canada Post strike really highlighted to us that redundancies are very important, that being able to future-proof your organization and reduce risk is very important when it comes to collecting multiple touch points of information. So if Matt is my donor, for example, for my charity, I want to make sure that I have Matt's address, home mailing address, email address, phone number, and even potentially following Matt on social media, for example, to stay in touch. And I think that one of the things that a lot of charities sometimes need to be reminded of is as we are fundraising and as we are doing our work and building our group of supporters, we need to treat them like community members. We need to make sure that they are involved, they are updated, and they are part of this greater community that we're trying to build. The other thing I'll highlight is that clearly communicating the impact of the strike and guide every donor to your online donation form. I was speaking to one charity about a week ago. They're based in Toronto. They're a food bank, and they shared with me that between October and December, they typically would expect about $3 million mailed to them in that time frame. So that organization right now is trying to figure out what they are going to do, how they are going to reach their donors who would be mailing in those gifts, and how to convert them online. So the other thing to highlight is if this strike, for example, is impacting your operations, the way in which that you are needing to provide services to your clientele, for example, that is something to also share with your supporters. They need to know the types of challenges that your organizations are facing so that they can help you. And also highlight that the potential funding gaps that they can help make sure that you are not experiencing. So we'll move on to the next slide, and we're going to take a bird's eye look when it comes to your holiday giving season roadmap. So right now we are around early October. I know this is quite small, so you'll get the slides later on, and you can zoom in to understand all of the different touch points. But the thing that to keep in mind is that we got some questions regarding, should we still be planning a donation appeal in the mail even though Canada Post is currently on strike? Should we try to take that gamble? If it were up to me, I would really double down on online fundraising, and we'll share some reasons why when it comes to audience and what we are seeing at Canada Helps. So again, even though this is a situation out of our control, and a situation that I don't think any of us here can control, it is still, we are able to plan ahead for those November and December core months of fundraising, when at Canada Helps, we see about 40% of donations come through. So we're going to move on to what we can do. And first, we're going to talk about donors with an email. So when you are, if you are an organization that you actually have a donor's email, perhaps you were planning on sending them a mailed, physical, printed fundraising appeal. We're going to talk about what we're going to plan for right now, and then what to plan for in the coming weeks in the lead up to the holiday giving season. So one of the things that you can do right now, and hopefully you can walk away from this presentation today with at least 1 to 2 very tangible items or ideas that you can walk away and implement today, or if not this week. But I would send a strike appeal email and making sure to inform your donors that Canada Post is on strike. We are still accepting donations. If you are wanting to make a donation at this time, please, here are our links. This is how we can accept donations. This is how the strike is impacting our organization. You can keep it clear and informative, and you can also include that donation ask. You also want to make sure that it sounds a bit urgent when it comes to what this is impacting your organization, if so. And one of the things that I don't personally see a lot of charities leveraging is fundraising thermometers. I know for some organizations they do, but I think I personally would love to see more organizations do this because it really allows your supporters to understand what you're trying to fundraise for and also how far you are away from your goal. The benefit in terms of your donation appeals via email, you really can track performance and you can understand your email open rates, what individuals clicked on, and also how they converted quickly or not quickly. And you can then pivot and determine what you want to do next. And really, email marketing campaigns really have that edge against direct mail campaigns too. So keep that in mind as you advance your fundraising. We're going to now talk about what to plan in the coming weeks if you have donor email addresses. So when it comes to how to plan ahead, one of the things that a lot of charities are really underutilizing is segmenting your donors. So what does this mean if you're not familiar? Really what this means is for a lot of email platforms like ActiveCampaign or MailChimp or Constant Contact, for example, you are able to put different subscribers on your mailing list in different buckets or communities or lists. They sort of depends on the platform to leverage the name. And you can create different segments so that you can target them with different types of messages. So for example, if you have monthly donors, you can put your monthly donors as part of one segment to ensure that they are receiving specific monthly donor communication, or perhaps you want to leave your monthly donors out of your fundraising appeals in order to suppress that segmentation to make sure that they're not getting those fundraising campaigns because they're already giving. The other thing I'll highlight here, I mentioned a few minutes ago, is adding securities as a giving option to encourage larger gifts. Let's leverage this opportunity to really advance our digital fundraising, and securities is one of those really fantastic ways of giving. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I set securities up? The person to speak to would be Matt, and you'll have a QR code at the end of this presentation so that you can book some time with Matt to talk about this. But the other thing, if you're wondering, securities donors, my donors are quite small in terms of donation amounts. I don't know anybody who really would make a donation of securities. At the end of the day, I would still put that as an option on your Ways to Give page because you do not know who is hitting your website, seeing that as a donation option and making that consideration to give you a potentially sizable donation gift. And you'll see at the bottom of the slide here, at CanadaHelps, we're seeing about a $7,815 average gift size for donations of securities, which is quite substantive, especially if you're a small organization. We've seen, and we highlight this quite a bit in terms of our giving report, but between 2018 and 2024, we've seen securities donations grow at about 5 times in terms of the volume that we're seeing. Last year, I believe we raised about $60 million on CanadaHelps. It is so easy to implement. I think it probably could take less than 5 minutes to add to your website, and you don't need to deal with brokers. You don't need to deal with any of the complexities. We deal with all of it. The other thing is making sure you are confirming or updating your contact information for your donors to make sure that if Canada Post continues to stay on strike, or if your supporters change information, for example, you are still able to reach them. It is critical, and building in those redundancies is very important. So we're going to move on to donors that you have phone numbers for. You may not have emails, you may not have addresses, or perhaps you do have addresses that have been impacted by the Canada Post strike. But if you have a phone number and a mailing address, but you don't have an email, here's what to do. So in terms of what to do right now, you actually really want to pick up the phone and call those donors who usually give at the end of the year, but haven't given yet this year. You may be thinking, is that worth it? That's a lot of time for me to be on the phone, maybe have a little bit of phone anxiety, picking up the phone and actually calling someone and not knowing what to expect on the other line. I think that is absolutely worth trying and seeing what happens. I think that being able to actually call someone on the phone and have a conversation to also ask other questions like, why have you supported our organization in the past? Getting some of that qualified information, or qualitative, that's the word I'm looking for, sorry, information can actually be really insightful to support your fundraising. It can understand if they perhaps donated because they were donating in honor or in memory of someone, for example, if they feel really supportive of your organization, and there could be other ways that they're not even aware of tapping into to support your organization. So it's really important to pick up the phone. You also want to talk about the fact that the mail strike currently will not allow for mail donations to get to them. And if they are considering making a donation, to please turn to online giving channels. While you're on the phone, texting the donation link to them so that they have the link to the donation form right on the spot. And also, don't do this alone. You have a board and you have staff and you have volunteers and other supporters who want to help. They're invested in your organization. You can even try to test this as a pilot and just call maybe 50 supporters and see what those types of conversation really leads you. If they're not leading to really to much success, then perhaps you can consider stopping, but it's certainly worth a shot. Now, in terms of what to plan in the coming weeks, really what you want to do is you want to develop a call script. So make it short, simple, and really focus the message on shift to online giving so that it's quite clear for your either board or staff or volunteer members to guide those conversations. While you're on the phone, you want to collect updated information. You want to collect updated email addresses so that you can strengthen your digital outreach. And then, if they make a donation to your organization after those phone calls, give a follow-up call and thank them for their donation. I think a lot of people right now wouldn't mind a phone call, especially I've heard anecdotal stories of perhaps individuals who are quite isolated and feel really connected when they get a phone call to receive that thanks from an organization that they've supported. And it can go a really long way because at the end of the day, when it comes to fundraising, trust is really the cornerstone of fundraising, and building trust means building relationships with your supporters. So that's really important to keep in mind. We're going to move on to the next slide, and we're going to highlight for donors that you don't have emails or phone numbers and you only have mailing addresses, which is a really tricky spot to be in, again, because of the Canada Post strike currently. So really what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have developed a QR code, which is quite easy to do online, and make sure that your supporters can see it really anywhere that you have the ability to control any sort of real estate. So for example, in-person events, at holiday events, on your website, for example, you want to make sure that that donation link is everywhere so that it's easy to capture those online gifts. You want to also include a banner, for example, at the top of your site or on social media messaging in order to make sure that your supporters know that not to mail in donations right now. It won't get to you quickly. You want to turn to online channels. And then also your supporters, especially your closest supporters, are your biggest network. If you really think about the networking opportunities of tapping into perhaps 10 different supporters who can then share it with those 10 individuals in their life, it's a multiplier and you're able to build that community around your organization. In terms of what to plan for in the coming weeks, you want to place perhaps giving flyers with QR codes at organizations within, perhaps if you work as part of a local charity, put it in local community spots, like, for example, faith gatherings. I know that at my grocery store, for example, they often allow for community groups to post a poster on the corkboard, for example, or leave some flyers. You also want to make sure that your board and your staff and your volunteers are equipped with messaging and resources so that if there's anyone in their network that typically would give to your organization, they can be your greatest ambassadors and your biggest cheerleaders and supporters to make sure that you're not missing those donations that would get to you in mail. And make sure, again, collecting contact information, putting it in your CRM, and making sure that every new online gift has that name and email address and mailing address and other phone numbers and such saved as part of your supporters profile. So we're going to go on to the next slide, and we're going to talk about the fact that, Matt, I don't know about you, but I am looking forward to the long weekend. I know for those that do get a long weekend, I don't think it's applicable for all provinces. So forgive me if that does not apply to your province where you're tuning in from today. But again, right now, Thanksgiving is about a week away, and really use this as an opportunity to highlight that moment of gratitude, that you are giving that message to your supporters that you are thankful for them, and hopefully they can share that gratitude right back. This does not need to be a massive campaign. This could be a simple email that you send out in 2 to 3 days. You can take an hour or two to write it, build it as part of your email, and send it out and see what happens. You can really also lean on those community groups that hopefully you're tapping into, and really treat those gifts that are made today as part of your strategic momentum for your holiday giving campaign. The one other thing I'll highlight before, we'll go on to the next slide when it comes to what to do for Thanksgiving. But again, highlighting the message, if we move on to the next slide, about, we're thankful for you, that we are thankful for your support, sharing your donation link or your QR code again, and then also quickly following up so you can thank them and build that relationship. So now we're going to move on to Matt, actually. But the one thing I will say before we move on, and we can switch to the next slide when it comes to your online fundraising infrastructure. But the one thing I want to highlight before handing the virtual microphone over to my colleague, Matt, is the fact that I know some of the questions that we received in advance of this webinar talked about the fact that some charities have donors who perhaps are older donors, for example, and those older donors are perhaps hesitant to leverage online tools to make their gifts. The one thing I will highlight is I completely understand that sentiment, and also perhaps though that trickiness when it comes to shifting your donors over to online channels. But the one thing I will highlight is that at CanadaHelps, one of our key and largest donor base is older Canadians making gifts on CanadaHelps. That is by and large the group of individuals who are making the most donations on CanadaHelps every year for us. So, don't let that stop you from really trying to shift to online giving channels. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Matt to really highlight what you can do with CanadaHelps in order to make sure that you are ready for success this holiday season.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Everybody can hear me okay? Perfect. All right, let's talk about your online fundraising structure. So you now have the playbook on how to keep your donors engaged, whether by email, phone, or no contact info. But every one of those tactics depends on having the right infrastructure underneath. The ability to accept online gifts instantly, to automate those thank yous, to track who gave and when. Without that infrastructure, even the best outreach risks stalling. So let's shift to the tools that make those tactics possible and sustainable. Go to the next slide, please. So we just covered what this strike means for charities: donations delayed in the mail, cash flow disrupted, and donors frustrated when their support doesn't arrive at your charity. EFT, or electronic funds transfer, removes the risk. Instead of waiting weeks for checks stuck in backlog, online donations your organization receives are actually deposited securely into your bank account on a weekly schedule. With CanadaHelps, EFT speed is matched with security. We partner with Flinks, which is Canada's leading open banking software, so the setup is safe and trusted. And once you're set up, actually, you never have to think about it again. Every future donation flows directly into your account. You can also activate electronic funds transfer during your initial CanadaHelps registration, or set it up anytime right from your charity dashboard. EFT isn't just a convenience. During a strike like this, it's the difference between scrambling for delayed checks and having reliable funding you can use now. So next slide, please. Earlier, we talked about the toughest group to reach during a strike. Nicole alluded to it: donors where you don't have an email or phone. If the mail isn't an option, how do you make sure those supporters still have a way to give? I think Nicole briefly gave a hint on this. That's where CanadaHelps charity profile comes in. It's your digital front door, searchable and discoverable by millions of donors who come to CanadaHelps to find causes they care about. Every charity in Canada registered with the CRA has a public profile page on CanadaHelps.org. In other words, all Canadian charities have an active profile page on our website through which they can receive online donations. And here's the prime advantage for you. You don't need a website. You don't need to worry about search engine optimization or ads. When donors land on your profile, it's entirely focused on your charity, your story, your logo, your impact, and your profile donation form. There aren't competing ads or banners pulling attention away from your causes. Donors can give securely right on your profile, and they automatically receive CRA-compliant tax receipts through CanadaHelps, so you can save time and donors get immediate peace of mind. Especially during a strike when direct mail is unreliable, your profile helps ensure you don't disappear from view. Donors can still find you online, learn about your work, and make a secure donation in a few clicks. So if you're thinking about donors you can't reach by email or phone, your charity profile is the simplest way to stay visible and keep donations flowing. Next slide, please. Okay, what about the next step? So your charity profile is the foundation. It gives you visibility and a place to collect online gifts. If you already have donors' emails, phone numbers, or a website, you can take the next step, offering a fully branded donation experience with a customizable donation form, or CDF. Think of it like moving from a shared storefront to your very own shop. With a donation form, donors don't see CanadaHelps, they see you. Your colors, your images, your branding, that familiarity and consistency builds trust and encourages donors to complete their gift. We actually recently updated the look and feel of our full forms, our most popular donation form type, which in our early tests has led to an 11% faster conversion time, 12% increase in one-time donations per donor, plus donor satisfaction jumped nearly 20% with the new giving experience. CanadaHelps' donation forms are flexible. You can embed them directly on your website so donors never have to leave your page. Or you can link them in emails and texts, or as Nicole had mentioned earlier, even print a QR code for offline outreach. Every door you open, whether by email, phone, or in person in your community, leads directly to your donation form. And CDFs come with built-in fundraising tools that boost results, prompts for monthly giving to grow sustainable revenue on our multi-step forms. A cover the fees option, so more of your gift goes to your mission. In the new full form giving experience, 11% more donors actually covered the fees, which I found really interesting. Nicole alluded to this earlier, fundraising thermometers to show progress and create urgency and see what the path to that goal is. It creates a transparency between your organization and those donors. During a strike, this matters more than ever. When donors can't rely on mail, giving online needs to be fast, familiar, and trustworthy. A branded donation form helps ensure that the moment you connect with a donor by email, phone, or QR code, the giving experience feels secure, seamless, and personal. Okay, next slide, please. Perfect. Okay, the impact of the strike goes beyond delayed donations. We also need to be mindful of the frustration donors feel when their gift doesn't get acknowledged quickly or the receipt takes weeks to arrive. That frustration damages trust and makes it harder to retain support. This is where your online fundraising infrastructure really kicks into high gear and does the heavy lifting for you. As we mentioned earlier, every donation made through your CanadaHelps profile or custom donation form triggers an instant CRA-compliant tax receipt delivered directly to the donor. That helps relieve manual tracking, backlogs, and risk of falling behind on compliance. At the same time, for charities using our donation forms, donors automatically receive a thank you email the moment that they give. This email can be customized for each donation form so you can personalize it for all of your campaigns. It's not just about that efficiency piece. We know donors want to feel seen and heard, and that immediate response makes them more likely to give again. Donors can also include a personal message with their gift. Those memos show up in your thank you tool, which I really sincerely believe we should be leveraging way more than I would say that we do today. The tool lets you go beyond that automated message and send a more personalized thank you, which is especially powerful for major donors or repeat supporters. It's a simple way to deepen those relationships right when the donors are most engaged. And for planning ahead, you get tools like the Giving Season Report, which is easily accessed in the admin. Just a couple of clicks, you can actually see who supported you last November and December, making it easy to follow up with the right donors at the right time instead of scrambling in the middle of year end. So while EFT and donation forms keep gifts flowing, it's the automation that helps you ensure donors feel appreciated and confident throughout the experience and gives you those tools to turn one-time gifts into lasting support. So let's bring this all together. Everything we've covered earlier, emailing donors, picking up the phone, using QR codes. These tactics only work if you have that right infrastructure in place. So for EFT, electronic funds transfer, donation actually reaches you quickly and securely, even during a strike. Your profile, your digital front door, for visibility to donors who can't reach you directly. No ads, SEO, or website required. And of course, the donation forms. They're seamless, they're branded, ways to give. You can connect by email, phone, or in your community. CanadaHelps' automation piece, so the tax receipt and the thank you tools enable personalized and automated follow-ups to build stronger donor relationships without adding that extra administrative burden. This is the foundation that keeps your revenue secure during disruptions like the Canada Post strike and positions you for success heading into the giving season. Okay, next slide, please. I think we might have some time for demos as well. Just like to highlight that our team is setting aside plenty of extra time to work with you, partner with your charity, your organization, to give you the full support that you might need in this time. So there's actually a QR code surfaced on this slide here. If you hover over it, it'll link directly to our calendars, and we can always connect live over the phone. Do we want to do, I guess, a demo here? We can show some examples of setting up that donation form.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you so much, Nicole and Matt. So let's go over a few examples of how this could work.
Okay, great. Everybody can see my screen? Fantastic. So thought it'd be worth highlighting. Within your CanadaHelps account, we've got those two pieces that I talked about earlier. Your profile, which is your digital front door. So if you don't have access to a website, I've seen folks leverage some amazing profile pages to really sort of connect with your donors, share your story, your impact, and provide that avenue for people to donate on CanadaHelps.org. Inside your donation forms section as well, you have a very simplistic way of keeping track of all the different types of donation forms that are available to you. And then when you click on this pencil button, it's actually a great way to go in. We talked about that custom form branding, sharing your message. You can have different ways to give. You can specify different donation presets. We talked about the spike in folks actually covering the fees for your donation. So you have the ability here to quickly click that and save. And inside our form builder as well are these really neat options to be able to actually embed your form directly. If you click on here, you can actually pick up the code that can paste that directly on your website. Or, as we alluded to earlier, you can share this link via text when you're calling people and doing that campaign, or through email as well. Okay, I'm going to just jump across a few screens here. I really like highlighting this organization's examples. They're actually leveraging all different types of CanadaHelps forms that are available to you. So if you click the donate button, and we certainly do advise having the donate button in the top right corner, something that's largely very visible to people that do come to your website. You can see they're also taking advantage of our embedded form. So embedded, it's nested right on your website. You don't have to leave. There's also the ability to donate securities. So if I click on the securities donation button, it brings me to a form here as well. Nicole alluded to it earlier. It's no fuss, no muss. We handle the transfer of these securities, which is fantastic. You don't have to go through a broker. And realistically, you want to be set up for anything that can come in. And this certainly, we've seen a spike in the amount of securities donations over the last few years as well. You want to be set up to appeal to those high net worth donors. You can also share a form that allows people to make a donation in dedication, in memory, in honor of someone as well. So we have branded e-cards that allow you to be able to write a note or a message and including all of the relevant information that would allow you to get a CRA compliant tax receipt with that donation as well. It's also important to highlight that you can have monthly prompts as well. So if you're looking for that monthly, more repeated revenue stream of donations, you can have that as well. An organization as well, Nutrition for Learning has been leveraging our embedded donation form here. So you can see there's a message around how your monthly gift does impact the organization, and it's really a great way to make it easy and frictionless for people to donate. I'll keep jumping here. I only have a few more examples just as a little bit of a hint, but you know, you can see that form branding is also affected. So Whistler Film Festival has their blue and red and black highlighted within their website. So it has that look and feel of their impact, their story, and they're able to show some quotes here as well. And for these folks, again, another example of a donation form that you can see is acting as a part of a seamless website experience. This example I thought was really neat too, because they've taken the liberty of actually making it sort of a one-stop shop. You can donate money, or you can donate securities right here just by toggling between these two buttons on the website. And finally, these folks have been leveraging our donation form, and it's more of like a light box iframe feel to it as well. So there's plenty of different options out there. Of course, if you connect with our team, we'd be more than happy to share relevant examples of organizations within the same space as you that are leveraging CanadaHelps donation forms.
It's still hard to hear. So just really relevant to what you were talking about, Matt, there. We had a couple questions coming in about the features of our donation forms. We have many different types of donation forms, the multi-step, full form, securities, and such. So we had a couple related questions on that. First of all, is there a way for charities to cover the fees, to have donors cover the fees for the donation on the donation forms, so charities can get the full amount or more on every donation?
Yes, absolutely. That's a great question. So when you set up the form, and like I said, we're more than happy to walk you through it here on our team live, but you do have the option inside the donor settings to be able to kind of curate that donor experience. And it's worth asking, would you be willing to cover the fees so that my full amount can go to your organization? And so it's a quick and easy configuration on your donation form. And so the answer is yes, you can do that.
Thanks, Matt. Still seeing that there's some audio issues on my side. So what I'll do is after I ask the question, I'll put them in the chat so you can see which question we're answering right now. So I'll apologize for that, but that's going to be our way around it. The next question here is, with so many organizations using online strategies for fall Christmas campaigns, holiday campaigns, what can we do here to stand out?
I'll jump in on that one. So just to repeat the question in case anybody has an audio issue, and Nobes, if you want to also post in a chat with Matt and I'm happy to read them out too, if that's helpful. But I think that one of the things to really lean on for charities is storytelling. So one of the most successful giving campaigns I saw, I believe it was last year, if I'm not mistaken, it was a farm that had a $5,000 goal, and they had they were very specific when it came to what they were raising funds for. They were not just saying it's Giving Tuesday, give to our charity. That was not the message. The message really was, it is Giving Tuesday. We appreciate your support. We are trying to raise $5,000 to support this particular project. And will you support our organization for this project? And what actually happened was they had a donor that saw that email, probably a dream scenario for many organizations. The donor called the organization and said, listen, I'll give you the $5,000 right now. Use it as a matching campaign for the rest of the day. And they were able to double their goal. So they were able to raise about $10,000, which is such an incredible story. Yes, absolutely. It is a saturated market in terms of a lot of charities reaching out to your supporters, but it's all the more reason to make sure that your supporters are receiving tailored communications. You're building a relationship with their supporters so they can feel like they trust you and they can they have that relationship with your organization, and really storytelling and being as specific as possible when it comes to what you're raising funds for. So I see in the chat, so actually we just answered that. So Nobes, I'll hand it back to you.
Yep. Thanks so much, Nicole. So next question here is, how can we increase open rate, click-through rates, engagement rates essentially for emails?
Okay. I'll also take that one. So again, how can we increase open rates and click-through rates for emails? So what I will start off by saying is there are a lot of resources online on YouTube, on other, if you use MailChimp or ActiveCampaign or Constant Contact or any other email marketing tool, a lot of those times, those platforms will provide education so that your organization can really try to leverage that. In terms of open rates, one of the things I've personally seen be quite successful is changing the name of the sender so that it is an actual person on your team. So for example, we could change the name to Matt Fitch and include the subject line, and it feels to the donor that you're actually getting an email from Matt. It's more of a person and a face for the organization instead of the organization name. And you can test that out. I've seen that work in terms of higher open rates. In terms of click-through rates, really take a look at how many times do you have a donate now button or any sort of clickable link within your organization. Too often, I see organizations not including a link in the hero image of their email or the main image up at the top. It doesn't link to anything, and that is a lot of real estate not to be included for a click-through rate. This is a little bit more in the weeds, and there's a lot of information online, but A/B testing out if you have a list that's large enough and you have the sophistication, which hopefully all of your organizations are moving towards, you can test different types of content to see what is interesting to your subscribers. And then the other thing I'll highlight is that every once in a while, it's actually really good to be cleaning your email list. When it comes to removing people that have not opened up an email in a very, very, very long time, perhaps their emails are bouncing. It's a really healthy exercise to be able to clean your email list. But I'm scratching the surface and really, touching on the tip of the iceberg when it comes to email marketing. There's entire courses on it, but that's my high level answer right now.
If I may too, I can jump in. Nicole brought up an excellent point around the resourcing that's available out there. I would say there's probably something to be learned from when you send those emails out. If you think about the behavior of the online behavior, certainly of those folks that would be receiving the email, you could potentially look at what times of the day you're sending them out. Now, I don't suggest you send something out at midnight, of course, but it's, when are people most actively online checking their inbox? Is that at lunch hour? Is that just before work? What does that look like as well? So to Nicole's point, there's plenty of excellent resources out there that can hopefully give you that extra lift as well.
And I'll also piggyback off that. Actually, I once heard an anecdote, this was many years ago, where an organization had an email campaign set up. It was supposed to be meant for the last few days of the holiday giving season, and someone accidentally sent it out on Christmas Eve. So the evening of December 24th. And at first, it was a big oops. It was an oops. We didn't mean to send it at that point. It was an internals type of oops. But then it actually turned out to be a very successful time to be sending out an email. You would never have a clue in terms of, they didn't expect that. So again, exactly to Matt's point, that's just a small anecdote. Being able to test different times is important too.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you for that. Apologize for the audio issue here. So could you also walk us what happens with the securities gift donation form? Is there anything specific the charity needs to do to set up like special for the special form for those securities? And also, what are the fees involved? That's a three-parter there. So just let me know if you need to repeat that. If you need me to repeat that, it's also in the chat there for you.
I can jump in here briefly. Interestingly enough, it's a very jam-packed week here at CanadaHelps. There is a securities webinar that we have this week as well on October the 8th, Wednesday. Hopefully it'll answer maybe some more of those questions. Yeah, Nicole, do you have background as well here?
The only thing I'll highlight it, yeah, I would certainly take a look and check that out. And Nobes, if you're able to quickly pull that link up just to sort of share that in the chat, I'll try to find that myself and post it in the chat in a moment if no one else is able to do that. The fees depend. It depends on the size of the gift. All those fees are outlined on our website, but really I would suggest go take a look at that webinar.
Sounds great. We'll share the link in the follow-up email as well. We had a couple questions coming in about the follow-up email, or about the recording rather. We will be providing a recording for this webinar following this presentation in an email. We had another question here coming in back to the infrastructure. Matt, maybe you can take this on, but how do I set up EFT? Some charities would like to know where in their account they could find that.
Awesome question. So when you log in, so if you go to CanadaHelps.org and you log into your CanadaHelps account, it's actually going to be under account info. So it's on the far right-hand side. And then under account info, it'll actually show sort of that red bubble that you might see from like a text or email on your mobile device. And it's going to actually guide you through step-by-step on how to sign up for electronic funds transfer. I'll also find the link here as well. If you still haven't claimed or registered your CanadaHelps account today, our team is more than happy to walk through that as well. But there's a page where you can actually go in, claim your profile, set up your password, and then you get access to your CanadaHelps account. And so it's a very straightforward process that inside the security of our platform, we're actually walking you through the steps of signing up for electronic funds transfer. A couple of things you will want to have with you, things like your bank account information, who the authorized signature is for that transaction, and you should be able to complete that just walking through the steps that we've outlined as well. If you run into any issues, of course, please, this calendar link, I'm happy to walk you through it as well.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. Nicole, maybe you can take this one, this next question on. It's, are we still recommending a direct mail campaign for the holiday season, or would be better suited to use this money for something else?
Right. So I think a lot of charities are trying to make that determination right now because it is really unclear when this current labor disruption will be resolved and if also Canada Post will remain stable from now until the end of the year. At the end of the day, I don't want to give a generic answer. It is up to each individual charity and your donors. I will say, though, that I think that based off of precedent and also where we're at right now, it is very important to be upskilling when it comes to your current digital infrastructure and making sure that you have those online donation links and leveraging and really trying to build that digital platform for your organization. And also potentially taking that money, for example, and it depends on charity to charity, you could consider hiring, for example, an agency, depending on if it's a little bit more of a substantial budget, to take that budget and run digital ads for the first time and see what that does. That's one example. Or they could be supporting you when it comes to building email campaigns, for example. There's a lot of sort of boutique marketing agencies that potentially could support that. It is, at the end of the day, up to each individual charity in terms of what they do, though.
Great. Thank you, Nicole. Do you also have any advice for organizations that are very much equipped for online donations, but the donor demographic, we touched on this topic, but where the donor demographic is elderly, of course, and they want to just wait it out and see if they can mail a donation afterwards?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard of, there was one organization close by to me, and they were saying that a lot of older supporters of theirs were actually driving donations directly to the organization and dropping off either a check or cash to the organization instead of mailing it in. I think don't make too many assumptions when it comes to this too, because it is 2025. A lot of people are quite used to making donations online, but also at the end of the day, I think of my grandparents, for example. My grandmother is 87 years old and wouldn't be able to know how to make a donation online, and that's her specific instance. So of course, being able to perhaps be a little bit more flexible for those types of donors, maybe offer to pick it up if there's really no other option from them, and if that's something that you are able to accommodate.
That makes sense. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think we can follow up with another question here that's related to that and related to what you're speaking to regarding storytelling. So when you mention storytelling here, one person wants to know what's the best way our organization can tell our story to the donors without risk of making the email drag on and on, becoming too long, or just being not easy to read.
I feel like we could actually do another full webinar on this topic in terms of storytelling. So just to repeat the question is, how do you really storytell when it comes to keeping stories succinct and tailored? I think one of the things I would say, I have a couple things to say on this, and I'll try to be brief. Don't overthink it. I think, for example, the analogy I provided about the gymnast and the goalie, it was a very brief story, so to speak, and it was an analogy to give you a sense of what I was trying to make the point across. So there are those types of instances where the story can be quite brief, and you don't need to sort of tell someone's entire life story in that way. I think that also many charities need to be considerate and ensuring that individuals, if they're in more of a vulnerable position, are making sure that their story is shared with dignity and not being exploited. That is so key. And there's a lot of information online about how to do that. A lot of the times it's allowing the individual that you're telling the story for, or of, I should say, asking them what they feel comfortable with and really leaving it up to them, and not trying to push hard in terms of trying to tell maybe pieces of the story that may be traumatic, for example, to them. But don't overthink it. Keep it micro, and then also really test different stories. Sometimes stories with different audiences may work, and you may want to just see what works and what doesn't.
That's really great advice. Thank you, Nicole. Right now, the time is 12:59, so we're going to get in one more question here. And I think it's an important one to distinguish. Matt, maybe you can take this on. I'll type it in the chat again as well. Regarding the custom donation form and the charity profile. So can I embed my custom donation form on my charity profile? Is that how it works? Or are those two things separate?
Thank you for the question. So it was, can I embed my donation form directly on the CanadaHelps profile, or the two separate? So the answer is the two are separate. What I would advise is, if you don't have access to a website, for instance, that you use your CanadaHelps profile as a starting point. Make sure there's a lot of trust built into the CanadaHelps.org brand as well. So if somebody does get to CanadaHelps.org, you want them to be able to search your profile as well. For the donation form, if you have the privilege of a website, or if you're leveraging like an email campaign as well, you want to be leveraging the custom donation forms. So they're separate in the sense that those are meant more for your website and for sharing out through whether that be social, through email campaigns as well. And then having there's a couple of different donation form options, right? You have the embed, which can live on your website, and you can have a linked form, which can be sent out as a CanadaHelps link there as well. But so the distinguish factor there is CanadaHelps.org will still have a profile page set aside for you. But when it comes to your charity's website, you're going to want to leverage a donation form.
Wonderful.
Hope that helps.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you so much, Matt. Again, apologies for the audio issues here, but on behalf of the CanadaHelps team, thank you so much for everything you do to support the community, especially when things get tough like this during the postal strike. Matt mentioned this many, many times. You have the QR code over there. We are here to help you adapt and stay connected with your donors. And of course, keep your mission going strong this giving season. So thank you so much for joining us today. And yeah, we're going to do a really quick survey after this presentation. So we'll be really thankful if you could complete the survey as well.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a good afternoon.